So, what is meaning? I mean, really? It sounds like a question for a philosophy class, right? Something people have argued about for ages. But today, it's actually one of the biggest, thorniest problems we face in artificial intelligence. How do you teach a machine to understand? Well, you might think the answer would come from, I don't know, computer science or maybe linguistics. But what if I told you the best clue we have comes from theoretical physics? Yeah, I know, it sounds wild. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with a really basic question. What makes a pattern a pattern? Think about it. You see the letter A. Now, what if I rotate it a little? It's still an A, right? You just know. Or, a song. If you hear it played on a piano and then on a guitar, it's the same song. Our brains are incredible at this. We see past all the surface level changes to get to the core of what something is. That's the real trick, and it's something that's incredibly hard to teach a machine. And that ability, that intuitive jump you just made, that's everything. It's the whole ballgame. We just naturally ignore all those little transformations, the rotations, the shifts, the scaling, and we lock onto this core, unchanging anus. That's not just some clever mental shortcut. That right there is the essence of meaning. Okay, so how do we take this fuzzy idea of sameness and turn it into something a computer can actually use? Well, believe it or not, we're going to look for a clue from physics. And that clue comes from something called Noether's theorem. Now, this is seriously one of the most elegant and powerful ideas in all of physics. Stripped down, it basically says this. Whenever a system has a symmetry, meaning you can change something about it, but the fundamental rules stay the same, then something else must be conserved. Something has to stay constant. It's a fundamental law of the universe. Okay, and here's the leap. This is the core analogy. In physics, if the laws don't change no matter where you are in space, that's a symmetry, then momentum is conserved, right? Now, here's the wild part. What if we apply that exact same logic to our patterns? If a pattern has a symmetry, say you can shift it in time and it's still the same essential thing, then by Noether's theorem, something must be conserved. And what is that conserved quantity? The theory says it's meaning. So let's explore this. Meaning as invariance. This isn't just a neat little analogy. People are building an entire theory of meaning on this foundation. And that brings us to what's called Noetherian semantics. Here's the big idea. Meaning isn't some label you just stick on a pattern. No. Meaning is the thing that doesn't change. It is the invariance itself. So the meaning of a heating cycle in your thermostat data isn't the word heating cycle. It's that fundamental curve, that shape that stays the same, even if the cycle starts at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., or if the peak temperature is a little higher or lower. Meaning is the structure that survives. Okay, to really make this work, to make it something you can program, you need a solid mathematical foundation. You need a way to precisely define all those allowed changes. And for that, we turn to a tool called a transformation group. I know, it sounds a little scary, like something out of advanced math, but the core idea is actually super intuitive. Basically, a group just has 4 simple rules. Think of it like a Rubik's Cube. First, you have a set of specific, predefined actions, like, turn the red face clockwise. Second, every single one of those actions is reversible. You can always undo a turn. Third, the actions are deterministic. When you turn a face, you know exactly what's going to happen. And fourth, if you string a bunch of actions together, that whole sequence counts as a single valid action too. That's it. Those 4 rules describe a mathematical group. And what's cool is that you can actually visualize this entire structure. This thing here is called a Cayley diagram. The best way to think about it is like a subway map of all the possible changes. Every dot or station is one version of the pattern, and the colored lines, the subway routes, are the specific actions, like rotate 90 degrees, that get you from one state to another. It's a complete map of a pattern's symmetries. Okay, so this is all really cool theory, but is anyone actually building this stuff? You bet. This framework is the blueprint for a whole new kind of AI, one that learns. So meet Kronos Agent. This is an AI system that's built from the ground up on these ideas. Its whole job is to take in a stream of data over time, say from Asenso, and discover the hidden, repeating patterns. It's literally trying to find the invariance, the meaning, all by itself. And how does it learn? Well, this is where things get really interesting. The designers didn't just look to computer science. They looked to child psychology, specifically the work of Jean Piaget. The AI follows a 3-step cycle. First, it tries to assimilate. New data, basically asking, does this fit any pattern I already know? If it doesn't, it has to accommodate. It either tweaks an old pattern or creates a totally new one. And the whole process is driven by equilibration, which is just a fancy word for its desire to find the simplest, cleanest explanation for everything it sees. Now, what's so cool about this is that this psychological model maps perfectly onto a classic machine learning algorithm. The assimilation step is what's known as the expectation step, or E step. It's guessing which pattern the data belongs to. The accommodation part is the maximization step, or M step, where it uses that data to improve its patterns. And that drive for simplicity, equilibration, that's guided by a computational rule called the minimum description length principle, basically Occam's razor for AI.
So, what do these concepts that Chronos Agent learns actually look like in the end? They're not just a bunch of numbers in a black box. They're these clean, easy-to-understand curves. The system builds what's called a curve ontology. And this is huge because it means the AI is explainable. It doesn't just give you an answer, it shows you the prototype pattern it learned, this nice, smooth curve. So a human can look at it and say, ah, I see, it's learned what a heating cycle looks like.
All right, this all sounds incredibly promising. But, as with any big idea, the journey from this cool concept to a truly intelligent system, well, that road has a few bumps. Yeah, we have to be real here. Taking a beautiful principle from physics and just dropping it onto something as messy as cognition, that's a risky move. The laws of physics are clean and universal. Our own thinking, it's often fuzzy, contradictory, and not always logical. So while this analogy is an amazing starting point, it's probably not the whole story. And then there are the practical nuts and bolts problems. For starters, the original algorithm they used is pretty slow. It just doesn't scale well to the giant datasets we have today. It can also get stuck in what are called local optima. Basically, it finds a good enough answer and stops looking, even if a much better one is out there. But really, the biggest hurdle is this. Right now, you have to tell the system what symmetries to even look for, like look for shifts in time. The real dream is an AI that can figure out the important symmetries for itself, just by looking at the data. But the good news is people are actively working on all of these problems. To speed things up, they're plugging in more modern and powerful learning methods. For that huge challenge of discovering symmetries automatically, they're turning to specialized tools like equivariant neural networks, which are literally designed for that exact job. And the vision goes even deeper. The next step is to see if these ideas can explain not just simple sensor patterns, but the complex, compositional, and even social meanings that make up our world. So, the ultimate goal here, it's huge. We're not just talking about building a better pattern matching machine. We're talking about creating what you might call a Noetherian intelligence, an AI that can start with nothing but raw data, discover the fundamental symmetries of its environment on its own, and from that, construct its own world of meaning from the ground up. And that leaves us with one last kind of mind-bending question to chew on. If this whole theory is on the right track, if meaning really is just a conserved quantity, like momentum or energy, something that stays the same while everything else changes, what does that imply about us, about our own minds? Is it possible that everything we think of as understanding, as insight, as meaning, is just the collection of things that have remained constant, the invariants our brains have managed to pull out from all the noise and chaos of a lifetime?